Okay, you guys, what I want to show you today is I've got some different oil paints today. I've got some skin tones, and I've got various skin tones here. You can see I've got one, you can barely tell on the label what color it is, but it's a peachy color. This one's a little bit more creamy color. I have a really peachy color one right here. And I have another one that's very similar right here to this color. And I've got this yellow ochre, and it's not really a skin tone, but sometimes I use it. And then I've got a little bit of this maroon red color right here. And this is a really old one here. I would have gone with some red, but I don't have any red over there, so I'm gonna have to order some. So I know this looks junky, but it's still, there are a lot of good paint in here. So like I said, I usually like to have a printout, my color printout here, but the printer is not working. So I have my iPad right here with the picture that I'm going to use. You can kind of see that. And I will just kind of use this for today. So what I want to do is I want to put skin tone on all the skin areas, just a very light, thin coat. And then some areas I'm going to actually add a little bit more color. I'm going to add a little bit of red to it, around the face, the cheek, and the nose, maybe a little bit on the lips, and I'm going to start trying to get that kind of color. Now, this will be the first time that I actually use multiple colors and mix them up. So it's going to be a little bit different than what we usually have been doing. And I tend to have like a whole palette full of paint. And what I usually like to do is, if I don't have enough time to do much painting, I like to take my paint palette and put it in the freezer. And if I put it in the freezer, I can get a couple days out of that paint, and I don't have to throw it all away, which, you know, you don't want to do. Oops, I got too much of that paint. Darn it. So I'm going to get a few of these colors, and I got too much of the red. It just came out on me. And I just don't need that much because I'm going to make them really thin. But you can see I got my yellow ochre here and some different flesh tones, some a little bit more dulled and some more pink. Then I've got this red, and I've got my medium right there. So what I want to do first is I want to start by mixing up some of my flesh tone with my medium, and because I'm going to put a layer, just a thin layer over all the skin. Okay, and that's what I'll start with first. Now here's the real danger when doing this, is you did all this underpainting and you don't want to cover it all up. That would be a big mistake. You're not trying to cover it all up with thick, opaque paint. Right now, we're just trying to layer a very thin skin tone on top of this. That's all we're trying to do. We don't want to cover it up. And that often happens. Students do all this great underpainting, and then they take a thick coat of skin tone, and they put it on top, and they cover it all up. And that's not what we're trying to do. We don't want to do that. So we're just trying to put the skin tone very lightly on the whole thing. Wherever there's skin, we're going to put a light coat of the skin tone. Remember, we're still doing very light coats, and we're doing slow painting. It's really slow painting. But this technique really works. And if you just kind of stick with this, you'll see that it will work for you. It takes a while, it takes many layers and many coats. Oops, that might be a little thick. You don't want to put it over the eyes, obviously, because your eyes are not a flesh tone. But I'm pretty much painting it on everything except for the eyes. So I'm adding just a little bit of color to it. And so this will be like the first time that I actually have a color other than blue or white on here. Except for the background, of course. You know, we got the background color. So even on this dark area, I'm painting my flesh tone on the shadow. So we're not worried that it's barely showing up. It's supposed to barely show up. So don't worry about it. It's better to do this really slowly than to put it on now and put it on too thick. And that is a common mistake that most students make. I had someone ask me why we painted orange, why we paint the canvas orange. And I don't know that I really explained this to everyone. But when you're doing an underpainting like this, and an underpainting doesn't have to be just a portrait. It could be a landscape. It could be a lot of things. You can have underpainting. You have to have like a mid-tone to start with. And because we're adding white to this, and we are adding blue, we have to pick something kind of in the middle. And the orange works out really well for a mid-tone. This is actually called toning. So, you know, a lot of times people will say, well, why do you do that? You know, and I'll be like, it's because it's the way I learned to do it. That's, you know, essentially what it is the way I learned to do this painting. But the real reason is because we have to start with something with a mid-tone. Imagine we were working with white and we're on a white canvas. Obviously, we can't see that. So we have to have a mid-tone, so when we add white to it, we can see the changes. And then when we add the cool color, we can also see the changes. So we wouldn't really want a cool color because we would see no change. And so orange is like the perfect color for that. It's perfect to get those light and dark colors, so we need a good mid-tone color. So you can see I'm starting to get some skin tone on there now. And I've got just about all of it covered up, at least some color. That's what I want to do, get some of the skin tone on all of it except for the eyes, obviously, because your eyes aren't skin toned. Now what I want to do is I want to add just a little bit more color, and I got way too much paint here, but it just really came out because look how I just put just a dab in here and it is super bright. So I got way too much paint on that. I hate when I waste the paint like that. It's just not a good thing to waste paint. And I know it's an old bottle, and actually I think we got it donated. Someone gave it to us. So I can't feel too bad about it, but I'm gonna add a little bit more color to my cheek area because my skin is kind of burnt here, a little bit of sun. So I want to just try to add a little bit of more color to this area here. Again, it's very thin color, but color nonetheless. And then my nose is a little bit burnt in this, out in the sun. So I'm just going to add a little bit more color to this. Okay, I could add a little bit to my lips. You know, we don't want to make our lips like bright red or anything. Anytime someone paints lips, they're always painting them like bright red, and that's not very accurate. So I don't want to get too bright, but I want to get a little bit of color on my lips here. And a little bit more to my nose. Again, where I know that a little bit burnt. A little bit more to my cheek. Give me a little bit more rosy complexion here. Bit of color to my lips here. Gonna get a little bit of color on my neck. Maybe a little bit of color in my ears. And don't go too dark. Also, if you feel like you have to get in really small place, you know, use these yardstick, or you can use a piece of wood or something, and you see how I've got it right up against the edge here, and I'm resting my hand right here on the yardstick so I don't have to touch the painting. So if you have some really delicate, or you're shaking a little bit, or you have to do some really fine work, use a yardstick or a stick, dowel rod, anything like that will work. So if you need to use that, then you can. Again, remember, I'm trying to use very little paint here, and I don't want to cover up all my light areas and dark areas. That's not what I'm trying to do. And that's exactly the mistake a lot of students make. They're covering up areas, and you're supposed to just put a light layer on top. So get some of that paint on there. Again, I got way too much paint, way more than I needed. Oops. Got a lot of paint there, too much color. If that happens, remember, you can either wipe it off with a Kleenex. Kleenex works really well. Or you can just take some medium on your brush and mostly get just medium on it. So just blend that out with a little bit of medium. And then if you have still too much on there, you can always take a Kleenex and kind of wipe it off. A paper towel doesn't work as well, but it will work. So get some nice color on here. Try to put a little bit of color on my cheeks. They're a little bit burnt. But I'll come back and put more later. Remember, we're going to stick the light layers. So I don't want to go too much. And I don't know if you can see a difference in that from where I started. I mean, it's very subtle. The difference is very subtle. Just remember, if you get yourself some skin tone paints at home, that you don't want to overpower your underpainting. So remember, just keep it just really light. If you have to make your skin tones at home, because you don't have skin tone color, you can do that. And actually, some teachers like you to make those colors. It's good to learn how to make the colors. And I'm sure you've probably done it in Art 1 class. But to make a skin tone for like a Caucasian, a white person, it's going to be different depending on how your skin tone is. But to make my skin tone, I would make orange. Someone take red and yellow, mix them together, make an orange, and then add white to it. And that should give you a skin tone that you can use. Now, some of you at home, I've included like a brown color, and if you have a darker skin tone, you're going to have to use that brown instead. You might have to take the brown and add a little bit of white to it. You might just thin the brown down some, thin it with medium, and put a light coat on top of that. And again, depending on your skin tone, everyone has their skins a little bit different. So yours could be different. You just kind of have to look at your picture to figure out what color you need.